We have already started baseball season. What are the boys in blue up to here? Where are they at here in the NL West? Are they weak somewhere as far as pitching, hitting, the bullpen is concerned? What can we expect coming up in the trade deadline? What about the big arm in Bobby Miller? How has he been as a Dodger? Find out in this next edition of Sideline Sports Podcast. Welcome to Sideline Sports Podcast. If you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. What's going on in there, everybody? Welcome back to Sideline Sports Podcast. I am the host, Alex Naveja. If you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast, where we've got plenty of coverage all around the SoCal region. You name it, Lakers, Dodgers, Clippers, Angels, Padres, USC, UCLA, football. We've got it covered for you guys here. Missed out on last week. I had to take care of some of the business there. But we've got plenty of social media coverage going on. You can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram. Always putting up reels and great videos for you guys as far as what's going down here in the SoCal region. But without further ado, on my left-hand side, he is a new face to Sideline Sports Podcast. He is the managing editor for Dodger Blue publication. He goes by the name of Matthew Moreno. Matthew, what's going on? Thank you so much for joining here with us today.
Hey, yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Thanks for you.
You know what? It was good. I got a chance to check out one of the Dodgers-Yankees game. Went to the Sunday game. Was really hoping for a little more run support in that one. And I mean, we'll talk a little bit about more of the Dodgers' Achilles heel, which led to that rubber match going in favor of the Yankees and the Yankees winning that series. But you know what? Let's talk a little bit about the boys in blue here in this one. What have been your thoughts here in this one? I think they have really exceeded expectations for a lot of Dodger fans here in LA.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, when they got off to kind of the uneven start through the first month of April, I was a little concerned. And honestly, it was sort of validating, I think, some of the questions that the team faced heading into the year, considering all the roster changes during the offseason and the plans to give, everyday roles to James Outman, Miguel Vargas, and, obviously losing Gavin Lux in spring training. It's not something you necessarily plan on, but then that created another significant void in the lineup. But then, they started to play better and they went through a difficult stretch in May and did pretty well. And, that could have sort of been a make or break for the season. And all things considered, with the injuries they've had in their rotation throughout much of the year, they did well. And I know, their long road trip against the Cardinals, Braves, and Rays wasn't a winning record, but you saw some encouraging signs, from Bobby Miller, somebody you mentioned. I know we'll get into him a little bit later, but yeah, as we kind of sit here now, they're they have one of the best records in the National League. And so I guess it maybe compared to other seasons, it's not quite the same, but they're still one of the top teams in baseball.
I mean, I know a lot of Dodger fans were saying, oh, the Dodgers are going to be so bad. They let so many guys go. How do you let Trey Turner go? How do you let Tyler Anderson go? What about Justin Turner? Why do you let all these players go? And I mean, let's address the white elephant in the room right here. I mean, the Dodgers let go and they shed a lot of payroll here in this one. Do you know anything a little bit about that? Is it the rumors of possibly Shohei Ohtani coming to LA or what? Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, so I think definitely their intention during the offseason was to get under the luxury tax threshold for this year and sort of reset their penalties to then make a run at Ohtani in free agency after the 2023 season. Like you said, a lot of names left in free agency because of that. Now, with what MLB ended up ruling, or not MLB, but the independent arbitrator ended up ruling with Trevor Bauer's situation, the Dodgers still owing him a significant amount of money. That sort of, in my opinion, kind of blew up their offseason planning. And so there's pretty much no getting under the luxury tax threshold at this point. I think they still will make a run at Ohtani. I'm personally skeptical on how that will unfold, only because Andrew Friedman has been open in the past about, he's not necessarily one to enjoy bidding wars and to get into those. And with Ohtani, I mean, there's going to be no shortage of interest, obviously. And I think, what the type of contract you could end up commanding, I don't know if that's an area the Dodgers will want to get to. Plus, also they have Julio Urias, who's supposed to be a free agent after this season as well. I know he's kind of struggled. He's on the IL right now because of a hamstring strain, but he's somebody who's been very good for them. He obviously, and versatile too. He's cemented himself as a starter now, but let's not forget that when the Dodgers won the World Series in 2020, that's who they relied on coming out of the bullpen to finish it out because Kenley Jansen was struggling.
Absolutely. He's a big time part of the pitching, not only the rotation, but I mean, in the pitching staff, he's definitely going to be a big name, and he's got to be up there in priority, right? I mean, he's got to be in the Dodger plans. Like, hey, we have to keep this guy. I mean, we have Fernando Valenzuela, who was a Southpaw Mexicano, who is absolutely dominant. You got to have some sort of Mexicano icon here to be able to stay here in LA to represent all the Latinos that are here in Los Angeles, right?
You would think so, but I think if there's any reason to be concerned, it's that if you look at the Dodgers' history, they've drafted and developed very well. But then once these young players become stars and reach free agency, who have they kept? And, Cody Bellinger, I think, is a little bit of a unique situation because his career kind of went on the decline the past 2 years. And so that one may have made sense. He might have just needed to, start over in a new setting. Corey Seager obviously left. And so now, we're going to be coming up with, like I said, Julio Urias, and then even Walker Buehler. And Buehler's situation, I think, is going to be interesting as well because he's had, a second Tommy John surgery. And so his kind of trajectory and free agency outlook isn't even career outlook isn't necessarily what it once was, before the injury.
And I mean, you mentioned some injuries to go along with it. I mean, in the rotation too for the Dodgers, they have had very different rotations in the last year, maybe even 2 seasons because of the injury bug that's been going on. They just got Tony Gonsolin back, and with just injuries striking the Dodgers, they have an opportunity to give their top pitching prospect and Bobby Miller. He gets 3 major league starts. He has been nothing but amazing for the Dodgers. What has been the buzz that has been said in the clubhouse? What has Dave Roberts said? What have different players said about Bobby Miller? And I mean, Sunday's game was a short sample size of what he's definitely going to be bringing into the table.
Yeah, so obviously, Bobby, he was known for his electric fastball, can pretty much, touch 99, miles an hour with ease. And so everybody knew that. But what Dave Roberts has said, what some of his teammates have said since he's been up, that they've been most impressed with, and I agree with him, is his composure that he's shown in every start. Making your MLB debut, it's never easy for any player. Doesn't matter if you're the number 1 prospect or, closer to 100. Like it's hard, right? Like there's nerves, there's some anxiousness. And then when you layer in, not only did he do that, but he did it on the road against a talented Atlanta Braves team that at the time of Bobby Miller's start was, and they still are, top 3 in the National League standings, depending on what day you look at them. And he pitched well, all things considered. And so he earned another start, and he followed that up with another impressive outing. And then that kept him in the rotation, like you said. Then he got the Yankees, which, Dodgers Yankees, that alone is plenty of attention. And then you layer in that it was on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, so it's now a national audience that's tuning in. And he had his best start yet. And again, like the moment just has not seemed too big for him at any step of the way. And that's what Dave Roberts, Will Smith, and a lot of other teammates have kind of highlighted with Bobby.
I mean, he's been amazing. I mean, he's coming and getting wins. He's winning in the major league level, and he's doing it no problems. I feel like it's going to be one of those situations once the Dodgers rotation is back and like guys are coming back from injury, you're just kind of left like, well, we can't send him back to OKC. Like, he's a dog. Like, he is pitching the lights out right now. Like, we can't. That would make us look so bad if we just sent him down there, and that would mess up his mental morale. So it just puts the Dodgers in a tough spot. Like when Adrian Gonzalez got hurt, and here comes a young Bellinger, and he starts just raking and yakking on the ball and just putting the Dodgers in a tough spot. Like, hey, we have to keep this kid here for the Dodgers. And I mean, one thing that really needs to be addressed, so that, their starting rotation, they're getting by it. What about, before we address the bullpen, what about Noah Syndergaard? I mean, he's a new addition to the Dodgers club, and it looks like he's struggling a bit to get that win with the Dodgers and be able to find his groove a little bit and kind of find his dominance. Have you gotten a chance to talk to Noah a little bit, or what's been his story?
Yeah, so when Syndergaard signed with the Dodgers during the offseason, he was very open and excited with joining them. And one reason he mentioned was the pitching coaches have a long track record of helping pitchers, kind of resurrect their careers, if you will, or make, significant improvements based on the direction they've kind of been trending in. And at the time, there was reason to believe that, Syndergaard, if he was willing to buy in and the Dodgers have this history, that, yeah, it would be another parent. Tyler Anderson, we saw it with him last year. It just hasn't worked out for, one reason or another. Syndergaard really throughout his entire starts this season has said, like, I'm trying to work on different things in between starts. I can't get the right feeling out there. His velocity, during the offseason in his first interview with us after he signed, he said, I see no reason why I can't get back to throwing 100 miles an hour. And, I was a little skeptical of that, as were other members of the media. But hey, if he sets that as a goal and he can go out and accomplish it, then prove everybody wrong. That hasn't come to be. And Syndergaard did finally sort of, I think it was, I don't know if I remember, spring training or early in the regular season, he kind of conceded that, okay, I'm not necessarily going to get my velocity back, but I can still be an effective pitcher. And it really just hasn't happened. I mean, he's been inconsistent at best, if you could put it. Obviously, he's had more recently, he's struggled pretty much in every start. And like you said, with Bobby Miller pitching well and Julio Urias now returning this weekend, like, the Dodgers have a decision to make. And I'm not 100% sure what they're going to do initially. I think, one thing we can kind of circle back to really quick with Bobby Miller is he is on an innings limit this season. They haven't said explicitly what it is, but he didn't pitch in any games during spring training because of some right shoulder soreness, I think is what they called it. And so they're probably going to look to give Bobby Miller a break at some point this year. I don't think he goes wire to wire making regular starts from now into the postseason. And so that could end up keeping Syndergaard in the rotation, depending on if they want to give Gavin Stone another look, if Dustin May is able to come back, some of the other stuff. But Syndergaard, I think his time with at least starting it may be short one way or another, just because I don't know if the Dodgers can really afford to continue running him out there on a regular basis when he's struggling as much as he has been.
No doubt. I mean, there's a lot of questions that are brewing here with the Dodgers starting rotation. Some could say it a good problem to have because of Bobby Miller. What do you do? And I mean, you have that innings break, which means other guys are going to have to step up when they come out of the IL and going to have to figure things out rather quick. The other thing that I feel like hasn't been quite figured out is the bullpen situation. And the big one I heard Dave Roberts say was they don't have a set closer. How much of an eyebrow raiser is that, not having somebody they can turn to in the ninth inning? I mean, yesterday, going back to Tuesday, that was a great example of, you know what, you need a closer. You need somebody that can get the fast 3 outs. You can't go to Evan Phillips every start unless you're really going to make him your closer. But I mean, the Dodgers still don't have Daniel Hudson back. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he still has a deal with the Dodgers and he's still on the IL. But I mean, what about this closer situation? It's that's a tough situation to be in, really.
Yeah, it surprised me a little bit when Dave Roberts said that was the plan they were going to go with this season. I think on the other side, some of it is, I think, just driven by kind of the hand they've been dealt. If Daniel Hudson was healthy and he just started a rehab assignment with the Arizona Complex League team, but if he was healthy, I think we would probably see him as sort of the closer. And I think what's ironic is, even though Dave Roberts did say, we don't have a set closer, early on, it looked like Evan Phillips was that man. And Dave Roberts admitted, like, yes, he's basically our de facto closer. And then there was a little bit of a switch where then all of a sudden Brusdar Graterol became more of the closer and Evan Phillips was in the fireman role that he had a lot of success in last year when Blake Treinen went down because of injury. So I think some of it is definitely personnel based. In a perfect world, if Blake Treinen was around, if Daniel Hudson was around, maybe, one of them is probably your closer, or there's some sort of rotation between those two and Evan Phillips. And then you can use Brusdar Graterol early in the games. You can use Caleb Ferguson in the 6th or 7th, maybe 8th inning instead of the 9th inning that we saw, against the Reds, like you just alluded to. And it's a tough situation. I mean, honestly, the way the bullpen is right now, the Dodgers really only have one good relief pitcher, and it's Evan Phillips. And he can't cover, 3 or 4 innings every single night by himself. No relief pitcher could, even Mariano Rivera, who's the greatest closer in baseball. So the Dodgers definitely need to figure something out. And I mean, the easiest thing is getting somebody like Yency Almonte, Alex Vesia, Caleb Ferguson, just those guys kind of pitching better and to the expectations and what we've seen from them in the past. And if not, I mean, they're going to be in some serious trouble.
Well, with that being the Dodgers' Achilles heel, the trade deadline, it's coming up in maybe in a month or two. The month of July is usually a big month for trade deadline deals. Do you think that is what the Dodgers are going to have to go after? Just kind of go for some bullpen depth?
It wouldn't surprise me if they trade for one relief pitcher, but I don't know if he'll be a high-end option. Daniel Hudson should be back. Blake Treinen, they're hoping will be back at some point, maybe in the second half of the year. And so I think the Dodgers will bank on getting those two impact relief pitchers back into their bullpen, and then, add another, not maybe elite relief pitcher, but a quality arm just to kind of filter in with the rest of the group and sort of see how they can kind of piece it together.
So I just want to finish up with one more question. If it's not the bullpen piece, do you see them going for something else in the trade deadline? Maybe like a shortstop, like a pitcher to put in the middle of the rotation? Or like, are you hearing anything about that as far as trade deadline acquisitions?
Nothing specific yet, but honestly, in my view, they have multiple areas that need to be addressed. I mean, if one popular name that's thrown out is Tim Anderson, shortstop with the White Sox. I don't necessarily know if the Dodgers would go that route, just because I think the asking price may end up being too high. And also, Tim Anderson is under contract for multiple years, which if you're acquiring him, that's great. But also, if you're the Dodgers, your plan heading into 2023 was to give Gavin Lux the starting shortstop job. They historically haven't been the type of team that changes based off injury. And so if Lux should be back next year, then what do you do with Tim Anderson? You have Miguel Vargas at second base. You have Max Muncy at third base, so that kind of becomes a little bit of an awkward fit. I think they may be more likely to trade for a right-handed outfielder depending on, I guess, what we see from Johnny DeLuca. Maybe he, proves to be their lefty master that they thought Trace Thompson was going to be before, and he struggled in that role to begin with, but now he has his oblique injury that's going to keep him out for at least a month. And then, I mean, if you ask me, I think they also need help in the starting rotation. So it's interesting because there are multiple ways they can go. I would rule out, though, a big-time shortstop, just because I think they do have the option of playing Mookie Betts there and him being very good at the position if they need it. And so why give up so many pieces for a shortstop when you have, somebody who can fill it more than adequately defensively, and offensively you're not missing anything playing Mookie there.
And the Dodgers aren't an organization that are going to give up big-time prospects. I mean, look at the guys that have come up with the Dodgers, like Kershaw, like Will Smith, like Seager, like Bellinger. I mean, the name's better than I can. And I mean, you never know. Like I always say, I'm always a fan of giving the younger players an opportunity, especially these top-ranked prospects in the farm system. You never know who you have in there until you give them a shot in the big stage. And I believe the Dodgers do have a lot of young talent, and it's always like more of the affordable route instead of having to trade somebody and such and they charge you with some big prospects that they'll end up doing better for another organization, and you make that mistake. But I mean, let's be real, Matthew. If you look at previous trade deadline moves that the Dodgers have made, how many of those prospects have you seen in the majors just absolutely raking or just pitching the lights out? You don't see it very many. And so it's like the Dodgers already know, like, oh, we're getting this, like the Manny Machado deal or the Yu Darvish deal, Trey Turner deal. I mean, maybe the Trey Turner deal was a little bit more like, all right, these guys are doing pretty solid with Josiah Gray and with Keibert Ruiz, both of them doing pretty well there with the Nationals. But I mean, for the most part, the Dodgers just seem to know like about their farm system, really.
Yeah, that's one thing that Andrew Friedman's definitely proven to be pretty adept at, I guess, if you will, is, knowing which prospects to sort of trade and not to trade. Obviously, the big blemish on his resume is trading Yordan Alvarez to the Astros for Josh Fields. That's, I think, pretty much the only trade that you could definitively say that the Dodgers lost, which I know everybody's into, when trades happen, who won, who lost it. But hey, no one's perfect. But certainly, to your point, as you were alluding to, Friedman typically knows who to trade, who to keep, and they typically will do it from a position of depth and strength. And so, like you said, when they acquired Trey Turner, Max Scherzer, Josiah Gray and Keibert Ruiz, they're being blocked by, Will Smith, Bobby Miller, Gavin Stone, and even, Emmett Sheehan and some of the other pitching prospects the Dodgers have at Double-A in Josiah's case. And in Keibert's case, Will Smith looks to be one of the best catchers in baseball. The Dodgers also have Diego Cartaya coming up through the farm system. And so the outlook for Keibert Ruiz was kind of muddy to begin with. And so that's an area where the Dodgers could say, okay, this is a bigger, maybe prospect than we normally would trade, but we have an established major league all-star basically in Will Smith, and we have another young prospect still coming up.
Yeah, Diego Cartaya, I mean, he's so young and he could just hit the ball for average, for power, and he's a really good catcher behind the dish as well. And I think he's still up in high A Great Lakes, so I think they're still kind of trying to take their time with him. And I feel like maybe he'll fill Austin Barnes' spot in the future. I mean, I think these are big question marks that you're going to ask as far as the Dodgers' future is concerned. And that's always a good thing about it, planning ahead and trying to figure out who's going to take whose spots. If you're not going to re-sign this veteran or this major leaguer that has done their time, and you want to go with more of the cheaper, more affordable routes. But that's all the time we have left here on Sideline Sports Podcast. We thank you all so much for tuning into this one. If you guys like this episode, if you guys are liking the content that we're throwing out there, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below your Dodgers predictions, what you guys want to see as far as Dodger content is concerned, Angels, Padres. We're always all ears as far as who you guys want to hear us talk about. Next week, we'll either talk about the Angels or we'll talk about the Padres. So don't worry, folks. We are covering them as well. We're doing it on an episode basis. So each team has their own spotlight to talk about what they have done this Major League season. Also, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you guys know when we're putting up episodes, and follow us on all of our social media platforms on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're always trying to put content there as much as possible out there. And once again, on my left-hand side, that was Matthew Moreno, the managing editor for Dodger Blue. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us on the show here. I had a great time talking Dodgers baseball, man. I feel like there's a lot going on. You know how it is.
Yeah, there definitely is. And, anytime I'm happy to join you.
And guys, you can follow Matthew on Twitter. I'll put his handle down in the description below so you guys can stay up to date with everything that's going on with the Dodgers. What is Dave Roberts saying? What are the players saying in the clubhouse? He's all ears. He's got all the coverage for you guys when it comes to the blue heaven on earth. But I'm Alex Naveja from Sideline Sports Podcast via Sideline Sports Media, saying hasta luego, everybody, and enjoy Dodgers baseball.